And we're back. Jumping into our final conversation, we are going to be talking all about how to be prepared in a hurricane. Of course, we know we are in June now, so the hurricane season has officially started. And we are joined by the Director General of the Belize Red Cross, Lily Bowman, and they're going to be talking to us all about hurricane preparedness. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right,
thank you for having the Belize Red Cross and me on this show.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, of course, since just the start of June, we've already seen that there have been heavy rains and there's been flooding in some parts of the country, which has already started to affect people. So perhaps we can just start by talking about generally how important it is to have a hurricane preparedness plan in place.
Okay, good morning everybody. Good morning Belize. Indeed, the rains have started. Although we were told that there would be a drought this year, we thought that the rains would have been a little later. But as you know, the hurricane season really kind of started from May with two previous tropical storms that had developed.
Yeah.
And so that makes us realize that the hurricane season might soon have to change from June to November to May and probably to as far as December, who knows. However, yes, it is extremely important for everybody to pull out their hurricane plan, and that this should have been done from all the way probably in March. But I know that we were very distracted with COVID, the COVID situation, which in a way should have already instigated the preparedness of families, the preparedness of organizations, because then we had to activate some kind of response, some kind of protective measures, some plan had to be in place. So it's extremely important now, it's not too late, to pull out that plan and incorporate COVID measures into that plan now. That is the big change that will happen this time.
Yeah. You know, even for you guys, because this is one of your areas of expertise, hurricanes, but emergency preparedness in general is kind of at the forefront of a lot of the services that you offer. How different is it talking about emergency preparedness in a pandemic?
Well, it is something new for us. You know, we have always looked at not even pandemics, but epidemics as secondary hazards to hurricanes and floods, you know, malaria and dengue and all that coming up as a secondary hazard. But in this case, we were introduced to the hurricane season with COVID ongoing. So now we're looking at COVID meeting hurricane. How do we handle both of them at the same time? Well, thank God that we had a big head start with COVID, so certain measures are well integrated into systems and are well inbred into our daily lives now, I would say. And so we have those packed down a little bit tight. Now we have to integrate them into the plans for disaster preparedness, which is number one. To the families, this is take out your family emergency plan and renew it, review it. Sit down with your families, and you have to go through maybe things and people have changed around your family dynamics. So you have to look at changing roles and responsibilities. Probably children get older, so they get a little more responsible. Now with COVID, you have to add in an additional responsibility, and you know, just sit down and discuss who will do what and what will be done, where will we go. And there, Marlene, I believe will be a challenge for the entire country to look at. And that is the subject of shelters. With COVID still looming over us and around us, there has to be different measures taken for protection of people going to shelters. And number one, we're already looking at less people will be allowed in shelters. So we need more shelters in the event of a hurricane. So because we still have to be observing the physical distancing, the wearing of masks, the hygiene procedures that have to be in place, etc. But it will pose a challenge in the sense that we already had limited shelters in place, and some not even in very good condition. But now we'll have to be looking at alternative shelters to take people because of the limitation.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas that just naturally stands out. If we're talking about keeping physical distance, even if you're going to be close to your family, but from others, that means that you need more space in the shelters, which means less people in the shelter.
Exactly. Exactly.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say where a shelter might have been able to hold 60 people per se. Now we're looking at probably even less than 30.
Yeah. Wow.
So that puts a little pressure on the authorities, you know, and the shelter managers as to how this will happen now.
You know, I know that you're also actively involved in looking at preparations as well. We did get word from City Council, Belize City Council, that they have identified additional shelters for this reason.
Okay.
But one of the things I think that we need to be honest about is that the financial situation of people right now, it's a difficult one. If you don't have people who are unemployed, lost their jobs, there are people who are hanging on to a very small unemployment assistance or have reduced salaries. So it's just not as easy to stock up on essentials. How do you, when you give your presentations and you talk about putting together that well-known by now hurricane kit, 3 to 5 days of supplies to get you through a storm, how do we talk about it realistically?
Honestly, there's a great dependency right now for food still because of the COVID situation. People are just now returning to work. But then remember, the strain on their pockets that the COVID situation has put on them is still there. So extra funds had to be placed for food. I mean, had to be allotted for food whereby naturally they would not have. I am just hoping, and we are just hoping that they did save for that rainy day, and they realize that the hurricane season has been very close and is now on us, and that they have put aside some items. I know that it is said that you are to take at least 3 days provisions. But honestly, it doesn't really happen all the time. Not everybody have been able to do that anyway, COVID or not COVID. So it is something that I'm sure the government has been handling over the years, and have been providing for food. I know for a fact because we have helped in the past here in the city with provision of food in the shelters. So even though it is something that people, you know, remember, put aside at least food at least for 3 days, it hasn't really been happening to the extent that we would have liked to see. So it, you know, with this COVID situation, it's even worse. So it is just an expectation that the government will have to, you know, look to get that gap covered, and of course with the support from the different social partners.
But you know, that also brings up a sort of important topic, and you've sort of touched on it a little bit in our conversation. But perhaps for a lot of our viewers, you could give us a little bit more about sort of what are the most important or the basic features that need to go into a preparedness plan. Because especially now in the wake of COVID, where it may not even be in the forefront of people's minds, or people have been making so much adjustments to deal with other issues that they're not thinking about, well, what do I have to do to become prepared for the hurricane season? So perhaps you can give us a little bit more, you know, what are the specific elements that everybody needs to be aware of?
First of all, you need to know who makes up your family, because everybody in that family needs to be in that plan. So even if you have relatives staying with you for indefinite periods of time, or just visiting at the time, you have to take into consideration that they will play a role if they're stuck with you. So the members of the family have to be a part of the plan. Who they are, their ages, their sex, not that in a time like disaster, sex matters, but yes, you have to make sure that the children and the women are protected. You have to consider who is going to be the lead in that family. Is it the mother? Is it the father? Because you have single-headed homes as well. Is it the older brother? Is it the uncle? Who is going to be that lead to activate the plan? Then you have to look at what it is you need in the event that you need to go to a shelter, and which shelter are you going to? When will you move? Or how soon do you have to move? All these things you need to know. Then you need to know what you're going to put in your grab and go bag. Keep that packed from the very beginning of the season.
That's right.
And that has some clothing, that has your medications, it has your important documents sealed in a waterproof container or package or whatever it is. You have to have, did I mention food? You have to make allowance for water, children, things to distract your children, a little bit of maybe coloring books, something to keep them busy while you're in the shelter. And also, I would like to put in a little prayer book, a little rosary, to pray as a family.
Absolutely.
And, and things like that are what you put in there. You need to know where the assembly points are in your neighborhood. What is the evacuation route? How will you get to the shelter? You need telephone numbers of contacts, police, NEMO or CEMO, or people that you may have to call if you are in trouble and you need help, or even if you need an answer, to one of your uncertainties. But these are the main things that you will need in a plan. The plan has to be as clear and simple as possible for up to the youngest member of your family to understand.
I'm so glad you said that, because I know Belize Red Cross and UNICEF as well, over the past few years has been trying to underscore to families that you have to involve your children in the planning. Once again, just remind us why this is so important.
It is very important, number one, to ease the stress of the leader, of the ones that are responsible for the whole crew. And it is also something that will help the younger ones to understand the situation and not to be stressed out or frightened or scared. It helps them to know that, okay, we're a family, we're doing this together, and I am a very important part of this. So I have to be cool, and so that is what it does. It helps to relieve the stress. And it helps the preparedness process as well.
So I know you usually have a booklet that people can use, which is just, and I always tell people to get it. You have English and Spanish, and it's a great guide that you can fill out for your individual families. Are those still available?
They are available, Marlene. It's just that right now at this point, I am not sure how much we have in stock. I know we have a bit, but we have been using quite a bit in our community trainings lately. So we have been giving them out in the communities that we've been working in, but I'm sure that we have a few copies still. But people have not really been coming to us for these plans, and it worries me a little bit, because are they even planning, But we know that we have really been doing extensive work in communities over the year, and so we've been giving these out. So I would like to think that because they have one, they don't need to come for them. But yes, there's this nice little booklet that guides a family very, very simply through the road to preparedness.
And it just reminds us of the little things that we may have forgotten. Like I always think of the meetup point if the family gets separated. What if the kids don't know where to go? So I think it's the little things that, because we've never lived through a disaster, we don't know are important. And one final thing, I know that the Red Cross has been involved in some of the assistance programs for COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I guess this is a great test for you guys, because you also are extremely critical in the aftermath of storms in doing assessments and understanding needs. So what are you predicting in terms of the current experience you're having with COVID and what it will mean for the aftermath of any storm?
Well, at least our response teams are already activated, and they had a very good simulation with the COVID, because we've been out in the communities rendering assistance with food, hygiene kits, and so forth, and even information and education on COVID and the precautionary measures to take. So we have already been activated since April, and I mean, I'm not saying that it is a good thing that we had COVID before or whatever. No, but it's, you know, they say that there's a silver lining behind every dark cloud.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to the preparedness for hurricane season. The only thing now that we're really working on is the integration of the COVID measures into our plans, and you know, constantly reminding our volunteers that this still exists. Yes, we are now in the hurricane season. We have to kind of change focus a little, but we're still working with COVID. So indeed, we have to look at them together.
Yeah.
As one response now instead of two responses. If in the event that there is a disaster that we have to respond to, because I know the COVID response will be for a while. We still have to, all the way down to the end of the year, I believe, we still have to be, you know, attentive to the impact that it has had on our people and on, you know, even the national society. Because I was listening to the YWCA and I empathize with them. We went through, and we are still going through that dry period where all our income earning programs were closed down. So that in itself has set us back a little where finances are concerned in the preparedness for the hurricane season. The good thing is that we have our powerful backup in the International Federation. So we have been constantly in touch with them throughout the entire COVID period, keeping them updated on a almost weekly basis on where we are with our response, with our preparedness. Now we're talking hurricane. Last week, the region had a virtual pre-hurricane conference. They normally have this annually, but for the first time they had it virtually, and it was a great success. Nice. with like 123 facilitators. So we learned a lot from all the other national societies in the region about how to best be prepared in the light of COVID still looming over us and, you know, still present in so many countries. Yeah. So it has given us a big jump start. We're kind of worried about the finances, but, you know, we have this support, and we have had very good experiences with our donors in country who have had, you know, tremendous faith in the work that the Red Cross does. And so that gives us some peace and reassurance that we are prepared.
And the Red Cross has so much experience in responding after emergencies. I think that's one of the things that we have come to rely on you guys on being able to do with the expertise that you have. What I think may be a silver lining as well, if you really want to look at what's happening, at least we know that your volunteers are already learning how to be safe from COVID in responding, so that when that time, or if that time comes around after a storm or a disaster, that they will also know, they will already have the practice in place.
Yes, of course, of course, and you know, you have to capitalize on every, like what I like to say is, if when they throw you lemons, just make margaritas, you know, make the best of the situation. And so we made our margaritas, and, you know, we're ready to face what comes on. Yeah. We still have some coordination planning to do with our partners and so forth, but, you know, that's coming, and we are looking at our situation very closely with the finances and trying to put things in place. And well, pray that nothing comes about to
Agreed.
affect us any further than COVID has already. But you know, like my dad used to always say, you plan what you hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So we really appreciate you having this conversation with us. I know that collectively as Belizeans, we almost want to cover our ears and just pretend like hurricane season is not something we have to deal with.
Right.
But it's a reality, and I think that the rains over the weekend, the 2 previously named storms, I think we need to be serious about what they're predicting and be prepared for anything.
Well, we have to look at the flooding too that is happening in you know, around us.
Yeah.
Because as in the past, remember, I could remember TD16 so clearly, and TS Arthur in the south. That was around 2008, I think, if my memory serves me right. I mean, that was tremendous flooding throughout the Cayo area, the south first, and the Cayo area, and the Belize River Valley area. So we have to keep our eyes on that, and we're monitoring the situation because flooding, it will, you know, will be a problem with all this rain, especially coming down from the mountains in Guatemala.
And I think it's also a good reminder that it's not just hurricanes that can cause extensive damage. When the Kendall Bridge swept away, it wasn't a hurricane that caused that, or the flash floods.
Flash floods in the south with TS Arthur, I remember that so clearly. You know, so we have to keep, you know, aware. We have to be very alert to know that it's not only a hurricane. You have floods, and then, well, this secondary hazard, as I had mentioned, you know, that can come up, the public health emergencies that might come up even to compound the already existing COVID. So there's a lot that we have to be prepared for and plan for. So when we do an action plan to, you know, and to just plug in the meaningful parts later after the event, we have to look at all areas, all the different components that can compound the disaster that may happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much once again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And stay safe, of course.
Yes. You too. Bye-bye.
There you have it. That was a conversation with the Belize Red Cross talking about getting prepared for the hurricane season.
Yeah, absolutely important conversation to have these days.
What we're going to do now is take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up.